you know what the real question is in our country today, and that is who's going to serve who? Are we going to serve this government, or is this government going to serve us? Because this thing is out of control, and as you are aware, the debt in our nation is at, well, you may not be aware, it's $14.3 trillion. The numbers are so staggering, we don't even know what they mean, and we can't even comprehend them anymore. But to keep from getting too much into what I would call my RR speech, which is a rant and rave, because I assure you that I can stand here and I can talk about issues on a national level, and at the end of that conversation, everybody would be so angry and so mad, you're ready to go out and just burn the town, so to speak. But what happens in that is, to me, it's like a sugar high. So you get all energetic and you get fired up, and then you go home and you run out of energy and you just get depressed. So the question is, what are we going to do about it? That's what the real question is. We see our nation in peril, and the question is, what are we going to do about it? And I believe the Republican Party is the solution to that problem. But the problem we have as a Republican Party, my vision for the Republican Party of Texas is we should lead the charge. We are the most Republican state in the country. And the Republican National Committee is struggling to counter the Democratic Congress and the Democrat President. Texas ought to be leading the charge. We are the most Republican state. We ought to be firing away. But we have a problem. The big problem we have is there's a debt in our party of $684,000. In fact, since our new chairman was elected in October by the State Executive Committee, that number has gone up by $154,000. The staff was at 6 back in October. It's now at 3. It's kind of hard to lead the charge when the party is imploding on itself and it's basically pulling in its sails. That is a huge problem, and I want everyone to understand that's a huge problem. I want you to remember 2 numbers, 20 and the number 0, okay? And I'll tell you why in just a few minutes. This is 2010. We have election in November. Everybody knows that. What else happens in 2010? The census. There's a census that's going to happen. Why do we care? What is so important about that to us?
More representation.
Right. It's representation. Because every census after that, there's going to be a redistricting that's going to take place. And Texas is projected to have somewhere between 4 and 5 new congressional seats. So it's a big deal. So last September in Austin, the Democratic National Committee had their semi-annual leadership meeting. Why would they care to come to the most Republican state in Texas? Because they think we are a target, exactly. They think there's an opportunity here for them. The number 20 represents the number of field operatives that they have working in Texas, trying to organize the Democratic vote to come out. You want to guess what the number 0 is? That's how many we have. We have none. So you can't hardly you can't put a team together and be an effective deterrent to the millions and millions of dollars of money that's coming into the state of Texas from the Democratic National Committee and that's being raised by personal injury trial lawyers. Okay, they've got their act together. I looked at their debt situation last night before I came to speak today, and at the end of December, we were down $624,000. They were in debt $67, which is probably what they owed their fundraisers or something. So ours is massive, and it's easy to look at that number and say, "Oh my gosh, that is the problem. That's our big problem. We don't have any money." But I'll tell you something. If somebody walked up today and said, "I am prepared to write you a check, Republican Party of Texas, I'm going to give you a check for $684,000. And the debt may even be higher than that. The party's not even sure how much debt we have. That's as far as they know it is to be right now. If someone wrote a check for $684,000 and said, "I'm going to wipe the debt off the books," that doesn't solve our problem because it's really a symptom of a problem. The real problem is we don't work together as a team. There's workarounds. Everything's a workaround to the Republican Party of Texas. Case in point, recruitment for the House members. Do you know how the recruiting was done this last time? It was done by GOPAC in Texas. Representative Phil King and several of the House legislative members, Republican members, went to GOPAC, the national organization. GOPAC was the organization that Newt Gingrich started back in 1995 when they took control of Congress, Republicans. You remember that? Excuse me. They used GOPAC. So in Texas, there's a local chapters. I don't know that that's even been done. We may be the only state chapter in the country because the difficulty in working with the Republican Party of Texas, the legislators finally pulled away, went to GOPAC, and said, we're going to start our own organization. I call that a workaround. They're working around the party because they couldn't work with the party. There's a group called Associated Republicans of Texas. They have publicly said they're going to raise $4 million. Now, ART is what that group's called. It's been around for many, many years and has worked for a long time to elect Republicans. But in this case, it's a workaround the Republican Party. Because the team is so fractured, we are not effective coming together. And that's basically, it's like Humpty Dumpty has fallen off the wall and is broken to pieces. And that, I'll tell you, if I'm elected chairman, that's the objective, is to get the team back together again. Because whenever we come back together as a team, the Democrats cannot win. We can beat them. We will crush the Democrats. How do I know that? How do I have so much confidence in that? When I was introduced a few minutes ago, I was been a county chairman, basically. It's a district chairman in Alaska, which is like a county chairman, and then a county chairman twice. So total of 3 times, which the extent of that was 12 years. In each of those 3 situations, the party was very dysfunctional. And I became the chairman. We organized, put the team back together again, and crushed the Democrats. There was only one judge that was left in Pampa. It was a Democrat, and he's conservative. And I think if he had changed the Republican Party, his wife would have killed him. So he was a good judge. We didn't change that. But everybody else was defeated. That's how I know that we can win. My vision is we put our team back together again. If I'm the chairman, we are going to do that. We're going to come back together. You know, my campaign, we've raised somewhere around $35,000. None of that's been our money for a reason. If I have to put my money into the race to be chairman, then maybe I don't have as much support as I think I have. The business community is the one that's put the money into this race, and small donors. So what's happening is I went to that community first and said, if I run for chairman, will you support me? If you can't support me, what does it take to get your confidence back to come back to the party? So they said, yeah, we'll support you. So I have their donations to prove it. And the requirement of them was, if you support me as chairman, if I'm the chair, if you support my campaign and I am elected chairman, then your commitment is also to help this party. And they're ready to do that. How many people here would say that they're social conservatives? How many would say that you're fiscal conservatives? Same people are raising their hands. What's happening in our party, there's this rift that's kind of developed, and the social conservatives kind of looked at some of the fiscal conservatives and said, well, you're not really a Republican or you're a moderate. They're not moderates. Fiscal conservatives are not moderates. Are any of you moderates? We're all social and fiscal conservatives. The difference that we have in our party is you have people who say I'm a social conservative. They have a tendency to say that is my number one issue. The pro-life issue, the abortion issue is my number one issue. That's their focus. The business community, who are also social conservatives, but they are fiscal conservatives, and their main emphasis is fiscal issues. Taxation, get the government out of our business, get out of health care. That's what they focus on. It actually works quite well. If everybody in our party was focusing on the abortion issue, the pro-life issue, all these other issues would not be addressed. That's why we win as a team, because when we all come back together, the people that abortion is the biggest issue, those social conservatives, if they look to the fiscal community and say, we're glad you're here. We think it's important that you're here because you're doing something that we don't have the energy and the time for because we're focusing on social issues. If the business community, the fiscal conservatives take the same approach and tell the social conservatives, we're glad you're here. We're glad you're focusing on that because we're busy doing this other stuff. Together, we cover the full gamut. And that's how we approach this thing, and that's how we're going to win. Everybody has value. Everybody has purpose. Everybody's important in the Republican team. And if we tell people that and we treat them like that, they'll come back, they'll be a part of it. And what do we get for a reward? When we come back, we get our Republicans elected. Our legislators get elected. Not just the redistricting, but even the better prize, the bigger prize, in my opinion, is we have a legislature that will pass our platform and put it into law so that we get our platform to be the law of the land. And that's really what we're striving for. That's the name of the game, is to win big enough to have our people in control so that we can get issues that are important to us to be addressed.